Voices amongst the static. A glitch in the simulation. A broadcast with no origin. You have found the Phenomenauts podcast.
Hello and welcome, you manifestations of eccentric matter. You have tuned into the Phenomenauts, a bi-monthly podcast where we look at the weird, wonderful, and mysterious happenstances of this and occasionally other universes. Your hosts on this wild ride are myself, D. Barnes, the radiant being we know as Amber Hall.
Hey there.
And the ever-mystifying Oscar Boardman.
Ahoy hoy.
Don't forget, we're on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and Transistor, so please give us a like, follow, share, comment, download, whatever's easiest. We just love hearing from and interacting with our audience. Alright, I did the thing. How is everyone?
Yeah, I'm alright.
I'm full of mac and cheese.
Oh.
Full of mac and cheese.
That's the way to be, kids.
You know what? There's worse things to be full of.
Yeah.
There is a comprehensive list, I believe.
I don't want to see that list. Please don't show me the list.
You know,
Spare me the list.
People can be full of shit. Well, now what if you describe someone as, they're full of mac and cheese? What does that mean?
Could I be described as full of Pepsi because it's basically all I drink?
You could be full of beans. Full of Pepsi, though.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I suppose by that logic, though, would that not mean I'm also, like, not to be crude, but, full of piss?
I mean,
because I am full of piss.
We're all, to some degree, full of piss.
True. Very true. And after that wonderful tangent, let me spin the wheel. I love that we really know how to, get the show going.
Yeah, I like to set expectations.
Exactly. We set them disastrously low. That way anything I say next works. Oh god, is me next as well.
You asked for it.
I did. I suppose it gets me out the way. And I've got a big one this week, so, prepare yourself to be entertained. Ooh. Those were words. Yeah, so this week I've been looking into what I'm just going to call enigmatic spirals because I can't think of a better word. Because I'm going to talk about a few different things that people tend to conflate together into a bigger thing that is actually just lots of very cool little things. Remains very cool in either sense. It's just one version of it's, true and one's not. But yeah, I was listening to an audiobook, one of the Expanse series by James S.A. Corey, for anyone who's interested. Pretty good. And they were talking about Nautilus shell patterns in like a structure that was completely alien. And it got me thinking. I was like, oh yeah, that's probably the golden spiral thing. And that was like a bit of a domino effect. And I was like, oh yeah, well, aren't spirals a thing that crop up loads in nature, and isn't the same true about like fractal patterns, and isn't there like a thing about, this wonderful, mystical, natural design, sacred geometry style of thing? Do you get what I mean? Just the...
Yeah. I think they call it the golden ratio.
Yes, the golden ratio is the name for one of the many things I'm going to talk about, but a lot of it was basically that a lot of it gets conflated into the idea of sacred geometry when there isn't, not to say it's not very cool and wonderful, but it is, the golden ratio isn't present in all things. All spirals are not made the same, as it were. In fact, that's probably the best way. Forget the rest of the thing I've wrote. That would probably sum it up pretty accurately. Not all spirals were made the same.
Not all spirals are created equal, it seems.
So let's break it down piece by piece, and we can sort of... I guess you can follow where my research went, and we'll see how that goes. So the golden spiral is where I started, mainly because it got me thinking of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 7. And that was like probably my first big encounter with I say first big encounter with something that explained the concept of a perfect spiral. I had studied an art degree previously, and we looked at it there, but only briefly. Now, myth bust myself, as it were, because again, that was very much thinking about the spiral as this perfect feature that occurs naturally in nature and is present in all things. And doesn't that just sound a little bit too good to be true?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the golden spiral is a geometry term for a logarithmic spiral with a growth factor of the golden ratio, also known as phi. A logarithmic spiral is a sort of infinite spiral you will have seen, whereas so long as it's turning, it doesn't seem to end, which is sometimes referred to as a growth spiral. It was once called an eternal line. Because you will have seen, just that idea of that spiral, it's just continuously moving and moving, and it looks like it's growing. So that kind of moves me on to the golden ratio. So what is that? Well, it's if two quantities' ratio is the same as the ratio of their sum to be the larger of the two quantities. It's represented by the Greek letter phi, which is an irrational number that can go on forever without repeating. It's a hard one to explain without visualizing it, but a really good example I saw was, I think it was looking at the golden ratio in a line segment. So A plus B is to A as A is to B. That makes sense?
Okay, so let's say A is 1 and B is 3, then C will be 9. Because it's like 3 times 1 is 3, then 3 times 3 is 9. Or...
it's more like, so if A was 1 and B was 2, so that would total 3.
I'm sorry to turn into maths.
Sorry, my brain completely glitched for a second there, I've got to be completely honest. I'm actually just going to straight up say, let me revisit this bit slightly later, just because I've wrote a little bit more a bit further down, but I don't want to expand our structure too much, if you get me.
Okay.
Only because the thing with the golden ratio is I found that it's quite hard to break it down into a easily explainable format, but when I start talking about golden triangle, it'll make sense.
Okay.
Basically, because it's all visualized in shapes and it's irrational numbers, and I'm not very good at maths, my brain kind of turns it all into visual information. So bear with me while I conjure you a nice mental image. But that's for later. So I will say approximate logarithmic spirals crop up here and there naturally, and these are the things that people tend to affiliate with the golden ratio, like the arms of spiral galaxies, like our own Milky Way, Nautilus shells, cyclones, mollusk shells, spiral beaches, corneal nerves. There's tons of things that follow an approximate logarithmic spiral, but they're only approximate. There's no real natural tendency towards this anywhere, if you get me. Yeah, alright, things form in a spiral, because sometimes that's just a really optimal shape. But more on that later. Yeah, I'll just say, just right where we are right now, other than the question about, actually explaining the golden ratio, is this all making sense?
I think so.
I realise I'm spinning a lot of plates here, but they're all going in a direction.
In my mind's eye, I have spirals and triangles, and I'm just like,
good. If you think of my segment of this episode a bit like that scene from The Hangover, because that's exactly how I feel trying to explain it. Because I kind of do get it, but I'm also not a qualified scientist who can break this down into an explainable format, so just bear with me. So, let's expand the concept of spirals a little bit further by talking about shapes, because I think it makes it a bit more, for me at least, it makes it easier to picture. And I think it's a more demonstrable example. Got there in the end. So what's a golden rectangle? Because I'm just saying more golden things. Well, it's a rectangle in which the ratio of the longer side to the shorter is the golden ratio.
Okay.
Or the ratio of its long side to its short side is exactly the golden ratio.
Okay.
That is, I think, the best way I saw it. Sort of the concept of golden explained.
Okay.
That sound good? That make a bit more sense?
Yeah, so it's a ratio. So if you have one length for the short end, then the long end will have to be this other thing, which is the ratio.
Just wait till I start talking about triangles, because I think that really makes it make sense.
Okay.
So the golden rectangle, following the golden ratio, is the rule that Salvador Dali famously tried to approximate in his work, because it was believed to be artistically pleasing.
Yeah.
He wasn't the only one as well. It was really popular in the 20th century among architects and artists alike. I think at some point in the future, I'm probably going to revisit this and talk some more about the history of some of these concepts, because there is quite a wealth of interesting information. It's just, obviously, I already have quite a big script for this episode, so I'll stretch it and we'll revisit it at some point in the future when I can be bothered. So now, let's see, if we look at golden triangles, which is sometimes referred to as sublime triangle, which I thought was very fancy, isn't it? I know, doesn't that sound good?
Sublime.
Sublime triangle. That could be a band name.
Sublime triangle. I'm taking it.
So 2 long sides and a short base. The angles at the base are 72 and 72, and the remaining angle is 36. Now, if we divide the triangle using the golden ratio, you get a smaller triangle. So, you just pick a corner, say we go from the bottom left corner and we draw a line and we use the golden ratio to plot where that ends on the longer line. You get a smaller triangle with the same angles. So does that kind of make more sense? Because if you did that again, you would get another smaller triangle with the same angles.
It's ratios.
Yes.
So, yeah.
That all sounding good?
I think so.
Cool.
I'm currently looking at pictures of golden triangles, and I'm like, yes, I think I understand.
It's one of them. You don't necessarily need to understand all the underpinning logic of the golden ratio or phi to understand that it's not some magical golden sequence that occurs everywhere. So sorry to do more maths, folks, but this is an important one. This is a little bit of a math lesson. Anyone ever heard of the Fibonacci sequence?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so this is one thing I actually understand. It's a sequence whereby each number is the sum of the two preceding numbers. So the first 12, for example, are 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89. Get the idea?
Yes.
Cool. So if you tile this sequence into squares with the side lengths as successive numbers in the sequence, you get a bunch of golden rectangles. Then if you draw circular arcs from corner to corner, you get a Fibonacci spiral, which is different from a golden spiral because it's an approximation. It's like a golden spiral, it's close to a golden spiral, but it is not indeed a golden spiral. It does not indeed have the golden ratio. It's just close. Any sequence following the same, pattern will have a ratio that gets closer and closer to phi.
Okay.
I'm just getting dead air. Are we all good?
Yeah.
I'd like to say yes, so I'm going to say yes.
Okay. So Fibonacci sequence does crop up in nature a little bit. This is, one that is actually does happen a fair amount. So in phyllotaxis or phyllotaxy, which is the arrangement of leaves on a plant stem, you know how they sort of just grow up and round in a spiral?
Okay.
They grow specifically in an order so that they're obstructing each other the least. You'll be able to find it in a lot of plants. So a good example I found in the house is we have a little money tree downstairs that's mine that I moved back with. And if you look at the leaves going up there, it tends to grow 4 leaves a layer, but each layer they'll move across a bit so they're not obstructing each other, and it's because for a plant it makes sense to evolve so that every time you grow a new leaf it isn't completely obstructing the old leaf.
Okay. I heard of an example which was a sunflower.
Yes.
So every row of sunflower seeds going round the head is offset by a small amount, and it's close to this ratio, so that it can jam in as many seeds as possible into the head.
So I didn't look at that specific example, But yes, that's another example that I think would highlight this
It
phenomenon.
makes sense as well as a biologist.
Yes.
It's just, it doesn't matter if you go, oh wow, doesn't that mean like some kind of, special number? And I'm like, well, no, not really. It's just this thing, anything that fits more seeds in will be more likely to plant new ones. So they will just tend towards what is the optimum. And anyone who overshoots will not live as well.
Trends towards optimal. It's a feature that we see present in most, anything that has ever evolved, really.
Yeah.
That's the pattern. Another examples of this are the fruitlets of a pineapple. So those little squares on the side of your pineapple.
Wow, I never thought about it.
They follow this sequence. The flowering of artichokes. I don't know if anyone's seen an artichoke. They're very pretty. The uncurling of a fern.
Oh, nice.
I've seen that one actually used for the golden spiral. That's another. A lot of these I've tried to pick because I've seen them used as examples of the golden spiral, and they aren't quite true. So, arrangements of a pine cone.
Cool.
The family trees of honeybees.
What?
The number of possible ancestors on the human X chromosome inheritance line at a given ancestral generation.
What?
So, the last sort of piece of the puzzle, if you will, is the concept of self-similarity in mathematics. Anyone ever heard of self-similarity?
Be true to oneself?
Yes, it's absolutely not that.
Oh.
I mean, I suppose you could. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Probably not. This means an object is exactly or approximately similar to part of itself. So imagine a shape you could infinitely zoom into. This is often the case with coastlines. You will all think of that GIF that everyone hates that always crops up every week on Reddit because it's just a coastline you can infinitely zoom into. It's really fucking annoying. For some reason, my brain is just like,
So this makes me think, what's it called? A Mandelbrot sequence.
Yes.
Where it's like the edges are all like, they've got lots of detail, and if you zoom in, they have the detail of the original, and you zoom into those, and then it goes in further and forever.
Well, effectively, that is self-similarity, yeah.
Okay, all right.
That is what that is. If I'm remembering correctly. Everyone check my sources. Assume I'm an idiot. And then or don't. It's up to you, really. So the self-similarity concept is typical of a fractal. It's a property fractals have, which I'm not going to get into because I could spend a whole recording session talking about fractals. But the reason I brought it up is because of Romanesco Broccoli. The really fancy fractal broccoli. Everyone's seen it? If you've not, Google it. It's very pretty.
I think I know.
I really want to try some, not because I actually want to eat it, but because I just want to look at it. Really good example of a natural fractal whose branched tissue actually follows a logarithmic spiral. And it's a great example of self-similarity.
I'm Googling it now. It looks great.
Yep.
Love it.
Now, I'm going to loop this back around. Be ready for the U-turn, folks. It's going to be a bit of a flip and burn maneuver. I'm just going to sling us right back around. A growth spiral, or, a logarithmic spiral, can be seen as a special case of self-similarity.
Okay.
In itself, in the sense that it works in much the same way. I'm going to What's the correlation? What do all these things have to do with one another? What's this ratio that crops up here and there, and why are things shaped like spirals? Well, there's no magical connection. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know that for definite, but there's no obvious scientific connection between all of these spiral-shaped things. In fact, 90% of the time you see something when someone slapped a golden spiral over the top of it, they've actually just lied. It's not how the golden spiral works, and they've stretched it out to fit the thing. A good example is Nautilus Shells. Lots of people think Nautilus Shells follow the golden spiral. They don't. They just don't. It's just not a thing. They've got a logarithmic spiral, but it's not perfect. But we do see a lot of logarithmic spirals that occur in nature. And it just so happens that the Fibonacci sequence can be used to create a Fibonacci spiral, which is an approximation of a golden spiral, but it still isn't the exact same thing. But that doesn't take away from how cool spirals are. Like, please don't hear this and go, oh, well, fuck sacred geometry, fuck cool numbers and weird repeating patterns that just occur. Because I think that I actually think personally, by trying to tie it into this big magical sacred connection, it's actually diminishing what it actually is to a degree.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, if that's your personal narrative, then that's your personal narrative. I ain't going to argue with that. I once thought that there was a sort of sacredity to this until I realized that that just wasn't true. Or at least, well, no, scientifically and factually, I can see no link between those things. That is how it is. Yeah. But spirals are still really cool. It's a fascinating shape that just consistently crops up naturally. And alright, it's not perfectly portioned or engineered, but spirals do keep coming up. They do appear. They're a consistency in the world. Now, but it's not down to any sort of divine patterning. It's just more a case of optimal design. Which to me is... I gotta be honest, I find the idea of optimal design more cool than the idea of just there being a divine number that everything follows. Shoot me. In the case of biology, it's the result of millions of years of natural evolution leading to the optimal shape for the task at hand. As we were talking about seed arrangement, we're talking about petal arrangement with phyllotaxis, and we were another one that I think cropped up was I would have to find where I'd read this, and someone would have to fact check me, but I think it was that the reason Nautilus shells grow in a spiral is because it lets them grow without changing shape.
That tracks.
And I think it was theorized that they obviously need that to maneuver because they maneuver in a very specific way because they fire jets of water out of them. I love Nautiluses so much. Like, if you're ever bored, go and Google a Nautilus. Why? Because it's a snail that moves itself by air, and it's not a snail, but it's in the same family as snails. I think they're a mollusk. God, I can't remember. Someone fact check me on that one. Someone.
There's so many facts, you can't be expected to remember them all.
There is a lot of pieces I'm trying to juggle here. But yeah, so in biology, it's just a case of really good evolution. It's just optimal for a lot of things, whether it be space, repetition, that sort of thing.
It's not related to a snail. It's more closely related to an octopus.
I thought that might have been the case, but I just wasn't sure.
It's like ancient cephalopod.
Yeah, they're very old. They're ancient beings. They're elder, ancient.
The sacred logarithmic spiral of the ancient ancestor.
But do you see how people immediately start to conflate that information and go, oh, this thing's ancient and it's got this spiral on it? And I can see how all these pieces would start to fall together and people would think it was something more than it really was.
Yeah. Just to clarify, just to make sure I'm getting this. So the golden spiral is a logarithmic spiral, but with
it follows the golden ratio.
Whereas another logarithmic spiral might just follow a different ratio.
Let me just, I'm just going to scroll up and check I got the right definitions. But
because I'm struggling.
The golden spiral is a geometry term, and it's just a logarithmic spiral with a growth factor of phi.
Okay,
so it grows by phi each time.
So you can have anything instead of phi. You could have a different number, and that would still be a logarithmic spiral.
Yes.
As long as it continued with that growth factor.
Yes.
Okay.
That making sense?
It. Yeah. Yeah. So people see it, and because say the number for the logarithmic spiral of a Nautilus shell is sort of near what phi is, but not phi.
Yeah.
Then people go, it's a golden ratio.
Yes, that's exactly what happens in nearly every single case I've seen.
Okay. People just go, oh, well, it looks kind of similar, therefore it is.
You can even get a picture of the golden spiral, and if you scaled the Nautilus image and the spiral image, they will even meet in some points. There will be places where it follows the curve, but it won't be bang on. It'll be an approximate. It's never going to be that exact golden ratio. And I don't know this, but I would even suspect, and I've not looked into it, but that, say, like Nautilus shells, not every Nautilus shell will probably have the same growth factor.
Yeah.
I would imagine they vary from shell to shell, but I don't know that that's speculation on my part. I just figured while we were on topic,
Well, you know what? I'm looking at an image here that has the golden ratio overlaid over a Nautilus shell, and they don't match.
Yep.
That case closed.
There was a lot of my script here has been influenced by a PBS video, which is very good, which was talking about the golden ratio. It's in my sources if anyone's interested. There's also loads of really good Wikipedia pages, but I imagine they're a bit drier for a general audience, so, that video is pretty good. So why spirals? Well, from a physics perspective, they're lowest energy configurations, which occur spontaneously in self-organizing processes within a dynamic system. That's just a fancy way of me saying that they're really optimal. They just make sense. Like,
nice.
If there is a task that requires a spiral will probably crop up. That just makes sense, right?
Again,
like
evolutionarily, if there is an optimum way of doing it and it's a spiral, things will evolve towards the spiral.
Weirdly, almost tangentially, it makes me think of what we were talking about slightly earlier before we started the episode, which was that, you could go to an alien world with its own tree of life, and you would find, well, the odds are that you could potentially find very similar systems to our own because they are just the most optimal in nature. For example, if a planet was anything like ours, things would probably develop a mouth near their other sensory organs because that just kind of makes sense. Or, just as equally, if you live somewhere with light, you're probably going to develop eyes.
Yeah, if there is a way for you to gather information about your surroundings, then a photosensitive organ makes sense.
But the same can be said of spirals in this example, if you get me, where it's like it's just systems. In a complex system, things will generate to be the most optimal because things that aren't optimal won't survive.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at spirals from a chemistry perspective, they can be generated by a reaction diffusion process in both activation and inhibition. And from I've kind of already talked about the biology angle, but as I said, it's just a really optimal shape. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
In all of the different settings in which we can look at a spiral and go, oh, golden spiral, and it not be true, we can also look at them and go, it may not be true that it's not golden, but it's pretty fucking fancy. In fact, I'd even say it was platinum, because how cool is that? I don't have any spirals on me. I didn't evolve any of those.
The platinum ratio.
No, but like
it is like you said though. Say if it's leaves on a tree, it just makes sense for them to not block each other out. And if the optimum way for you to get the majority of your food is to do it in this logarithmic spiral way, then you're going to get more food than your neighbor, and you're more likely to survive. So then everyone inherits the golden, not the golden ratio, but this logarithmic ratio of leaf position.
It's like I said about the Nautilus, if I can verify that information somewhere. It would make sense that if it was the case, it's just that it allows something to grow without changing shape.
Yeah, it just adds a new, another version of what it's already sat in, but just scaled up to a certain degree that it just attaches perfectly at the edge of the last one. Yeah, why not?
It's like it's not sacred or divine that things happen in nature to be optimal, but that doesn't make them any less awesome.
It is
I guess,
exceptionally cool.
Yeah, I guess that's my closing remark on the topic, is that while it may not be divine and it may not all fit towards this one magic number, that doesn't make it any less awesome. Like, that doesn't make it any less cool or almost wonderfully serendipitous. Like, I actually think shoot me, like I said earlier, I think it's more cool that these spirals don't all match perfectly.
Yeah.
Because
convergent evolution.
Yeah, like, it's making me think of the crab cycle. I'm talking about the fucking crab cycle, but, I look at that spiral and I go, well, clearly it was a good shape because look at how much it's cropped up.
Yeah, and it's, like, say convergent evolution on, like, wings or something like that is one thing, but convergent evolution on a mathematical pattern, but employed in different ways, like my leaves go here, my seeds go here, my body grows like this. So they're not even in like converging on the same thing, they're converging on a mathematical like pattern that is more efficient. That's amazing.
Yeah, like I don't need it to be sacred geometry to blow my fucking mind.
Like, I look at nature and I go, I don't need to believe in a higher power. The amazement is here.
Don't get me wrong, if that's what you do, that's what you do. But just in this one instance,
for me, I'll just look at that like, wow, this Nautilus shell and that sunflower. Wow, nature.
So in conclusion, everything following a divine ratio and fitting a divine golden spiral is kind of a load of bollocks and shouldn't really be trusted for the most part when you Google it on the internet. But spirals, pretty fucking cool. Anyone got any questions? Or thoughts or
they are
feelings?
pretty cool, you're right.
Yeah, I hope that one was... Oh, sorry.
Could you use spirals in making, say, you know how fruit winders... have you ever had a fruit winder?
Yes, of course I've had a fruit winder.
Yeah. Could you make them with the golden spiral? And would they taste better?
Would they get thicker at the tip?
Ooh.
I think they would come in a bigger box. They wouldn't follow the golden spiral when they came out of the box. They'd be like Schrodinger's spiral.
We'll call them platinum spiral winders.
Delicious. Alright, I'm going to spin that wheel then if everyone's content with that explanation of spirals.
I'm cool with that.
Wasn't too much of a... Hope it wasn't too much of a... Whatever it was. I hope it wasn't super confusing and a mess, alright?
I wrapped my head around it just.
Good. How about you, Amber?
Well, I wasn't getting it at the start, but as we discussed it, I feel like I'm getting it now. I'm getting it.
Good. I've got to say, I was very nervous to broach this one just because of the amount of mathematics involved and the fact that...
Don't worry, I'm also scared of maths.
The thing is, I'm not even scared of it. I find it fascinating. It's just that my brain's occasionally a bit odd in the way it processes things. So when it comes to numbers, a lot of the time, it just shuts down unnecessarily. And it's like, no, you can do this. It's just that the thought of doing it stresses you out so much that you forget you can do it.
I think I get that. We just go, oh, it's scary, don't think.
Right, spin the wheel. It's Oscar. I ran out of air. I'm sorry. Which means it's going to be Amber last.
Okay.
Excellent.
Right.
But just before I let you run wild, Oscar, if that's all right, let's just have a quick word from our sponsor.
Initializing universal simulation. You have unsaved sessions.
What would you do in the event of a zombie apocalypse?
What if vampires lived among us?
Can society survive without electricity?
Would you like to start a new session?
Yes, please.
Rendering complete.
Do you enjoy exploring hypothetical, world-changing scenarios with some added humor from three nerds?
Utilizing the most advanced supercomputer in the universe, the human brain.
Then join us on the Trialogue, where we run the simulations so you don't have to. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and Transistor, and on Twitter at @the_Trialogue.
Wasn't that lovely? We incepted our own podcast that features primarily us talking, with more audio of us talking.
Wow.
Adverts are weird, aren't they? Useful, though. Right, off you go, Oscar.
Okay.
That was your cue.
Oh, I know. I think I cut out there briefly.
Okay. My bad.
All right.
I'm the asshole.
No, it's fine. It was awful timing. Okay. It's time. Put on your swimming trunks and your goggles. Hold your nose as we dive on in. We're going back to one of my favourite little segments, the secrets of secrets.
Yay! Yay! We've not heard secrets of secrets in ages.
Oh, my favourite little ocean friends. So I've got a couple of different secrets I'd like to talk to you two about today.
Tell me your secrets.
Okay, so the first one I'd like to talk to you two about is hold on. Okay, no, let's start with the second one. Okay, so the second one is how did that? Okay, never mind. Third one I'd like to. Oh, come on. Sorry, guys. They've all turned into crabs.
Oh, this is not, is it?
Yeah, I swear, I only looked. I only looked away for like 1-2 million years tops, but they've all turned into crabs.
Oh gosh.
Oh dear.
Oh, no.
As you may have guessed, I'm going to broach on a topic that I know both of you have heard, but some people at home might not have heard about. It's called Carsonization. Ooh.
Oh god, that's a
What is
fancy word for.
Carsonization?
Here we go.
So Carsonization is an example of something you mentioned earlier, divergent evolution, where a member of the crustacean family, which is not a crab, develops into a form that you might describe as very crab-like. And the odd thing is, it's happened more than once. In fact, a lot more than once. I think I've got at least 5 different examples here I've been looking at of crab. So the term was first introduced by Lancelot Alexander Borradaile, which is a very that's a fantastic name for a crab scientist. They described it as the carsonization as a reduction of the abdomen of a tailed crustacean with a depression and broadening of its cephalothorax. And a cephalothorax apparently just means a head fused with, your chest, like they're fused together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know how a crab's head is just a part of its main body?
Remove neck.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially it gets a broader sort of head body and a shorter tail. And that is, in general, what carsonization is known as. The interesting thing, obviously, is it's happened more than once, divergent evolution. So I've got a couple of examples here that it's happened in the wild. I went into it expecting that it was all these different animals becoming crabs. But in reality, a lot of the time, it is a member of, say, the hermit crabs or the crustacean members that just went, you know what, we like what crabs are doing, we're going to do that as well. So, the first one I think we'll talk about is the king crab, which is believed to have evolved from the hermit crab family, which aren't crabs, but obviously have crab in the name, like a lot of these non-crabs I'm going to talk about today, just because they look like crabs. Which is interesting because it evolved from the hermit crab family. Now, the thing is, most hermit crabs are asymmetrical, so they can fit into, say, spiral shells.
Ah.
Sorry, I just really love hermit crabs so much. They're just little babies that carry their houses with them. Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry.
King crabs evolved out of this asymmetricalness to be more crab-like, which is a bit interesting from like an evolutionary standpoint, going from being sort of swirly to not swirly.
Going from being crab adjacent to truly crab.
Yeah, a lot of these, you just sort of look at them and go, aren't they crabs? And the answer is no, technically not.
Are you a crab? Well, no. I'm almost a crab.
Technically, no. The next one I'd like to talk to you about is the hairy stone crabs, which live off the coast of Australia. And if you have time, just pull yourself up an image of the hairy stone crab, because they look quite adorable. They're only tiny. They're about 1.5 to 2.5 centimetres wide. They're very tiny little crabs that live off of Australia.
Oh, tiny hairy stone crab.
Oh, what a little baby!
So what a lot of these things, technicalities as well, is they only have 3 legs rather than the crab's 4.
Oh my god, they do!
Oh, they're so cute. And the little, oh, look at these little hairy babies.
Oh.
Yeah, tiny little crabs. I know there's, you know what, crabs, pretty good design. Although technically not crabs, but for, you know what, in my eyes, they're all crabs. They've all earned it. So going from that tiny little crab, I'd like to go in the complete opposite direction. The coconut crab.
Oh,
I love the fucking guy. That thing is what an absolute unit of a crab.
A scary one.
A species of terrestrial hermit crab. So they live on the land. That's where they live. It's got two other names. There's the some people call it the robber crab, which I couldn't find like a great reason why they would label this crab as a thief or a ne'er-do-well, but robber crab it is. Or the palm thief, which is the other one.
Not getting much love.
No, it's having a bad time. No,
but they are the largest terrestrial arthropod in the world. They're just big. They weigh up to about 4.1 kilograms and about up to 1 meters in length. Reading up on these guys is pretty fantastic because apparently they don't really have any natural predators, and they're very slow moving. So if you leave them, they'll leave you, kind of thing. But what they are quite known for is their very strong grip. So if they pinch onto something, they will not let go.
Oh,
Unless, and I found this little description, apparently if you tickle the underside, it's said that they will let go.
Oh,
but I couldn't find like a full scientific. It was like in case of emergencies, it has been known to help make them let go.
Give them a little tickle.
Give them a little tickle. Sadly, though, they some people do eat them. They are considered a delicacy and an aphrodisiac in various cultures. So, unfortunately, they have been hunted a little bit and are threatened in certain areas of the world. But although they aren't, so people eat them, although they aren't themselves innately poisonous, they can become poisonous by eating certain things.
Oh,
I absolutely love this concept.
So one example is consumption of the sea mango, which can make the crab toxic due to the presence of cardiac cardenolides, a type of steroid.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, these you know what, I like these guys. They're pretty alright. Again, honorary crab.
I was just looking at their Wikipedia page. They have vestigial gills. I don't know whether you're going to mention this. They developed a new organ to breathe in air, and after they've grown up to adult stage, if you hold them underwater, you can drown them.
Oh,
I don't know how scientists found that out. I'm just drowning a coconut crab.
Can they not go back into water then after a certain age?
No, they are land animals now.
So are
land crabs?
As the idiot in the room, would that make them like an amphibian, like frogs?
No, still a crustacean. There's probably going to be other like crabs that can only live on land, but it's only the same as like an otter lives in water. But I suppose mammals never developed gills again, but these guys have evolved off their gills, and
that's the bit that got me.
They have branchiostigal lungs. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Yeah, just evolved lungs.
Wild. I guess it's only as different as having the hole that a lot of insects have.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that.
But evolutionary, they decided, you know what, it's time to become more crab-like.
I think that's nuts. Yeah, I thought they were actual crabs.
No. Members of the hermit crab family, like the aforementioned king crab. A lot of these come from the hermit crab family. Which is sad because hermit crabs. Why can't they be crabs too?
I guess they were like, I'm going to climb in this rock or this shell. I'm going to keep myself safe. But now the sea is very safe, so they don't need to anymore. So they just evolve into a big robber crab. Rob someone's crap that they left on the floor.
Okay, so the next order of become crab is one of the most interesting, I think, in my research. So they are the family formerly. So let's see, the order Cyclida. It's hard to say that. Cyclida. So these are prehistoric crabs, which we found in fossils, and they're just members of sort of the crustacean family that seem to be very much like crabs. But the thing that makes these ones stand out the most is they were around before the true crab ever existed. So, are they the true crab?
Yeah, if we think hermit crabs are like crabs but not crabs, then if these guys came before crabs, then maybe these crabs are not the crabs we're looking for.
Are we trying to establish which crab first?
Which crab?
Which was the first crab to crab?
Yeah. So these things aren't called crabs because crabs came afterwards, but designed very much became into a crab. So I take that as you will.
Yeah,
maybe
so which crab
what we
first?
know as crabs. Yeah. I tried to get my head around this quite a lot.
So
well, obviously there's something. If you want to have a quick look, Cyclida, Cyclida. We've only got like fossilized evidence of them, but they seem to be crab. I mean, the only fossil images I can find sort of look like a puck, or like a very off donut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just
But
looks
looked
like
at
a burnt, burger bun or something.
Yeah. This isn't your typical brioche.
All things are crabs when you look close enough.
So that's a nice selection of sort of non-crabs becoming crabs. There is one more I thought I should mention because I found this title and thought it was fantastic, and that's hypercarsonization.
Oh.
A form beyond this one.
Oh.
So hypercarsonization is something that was observed in porcelain crabs. So in addition to all the other forms, like the general definition of carcinization, where the body shortens and the head widened, they also started to show sexual dimorphism, where between the male and females of the species there was a difference, and that's the males had a lot more shorter pleons, which are the little swimming bits at the back.
Okay.
Yeah, but apparently that makes them hypercarcinization, because before in their lineage there wasn't a difference really between the males and the females up until this evolutionary stage in which they were like, oh, crabs have two different forms, why can't we?
So even crabs have not, become crabs. Now we've got guys who are crabbing it up more than the crabs are crabbing.
Mega crab.
Yeah, they're you know what? Everyone's joining in this new fashion trend. Become crab today.
Try crab now.
Be crab.
Yeah, so that was a nice selection I found of what is carcinization and who's doing it nowadays, which are the cool kids. I think I learned a lot, because whenever I heard people talking about carcinization or the crab cycle, I always thought it was just how this animal kept appearing, but in reality it's just this member of the crustacean family was all like, you know what, crabs are doing it right.
I feel like I'm a bit more settled in knowing that, oh, right, they turned into crabs for that reason, but they were already pretty close to crabs. It's not like, they were a completely separate entity that suddenly started to trend towards crab.
I'm glad.
Yeah, so you don't have to worry that humanity's not going to suddenly turn into crabs.
I'm not going to turn into
the
humano crab yet.
I mean, you could. You can do whatever you want, but you don't have to turn into a crab. I like that. I was just looking at the Wikipedia article for Carsonization, and one of the criteria to define Carsonization, and it's just the scientific wording. I love it. The pleon is flattened and strongly bent, in dorsal view completely hiding the tergites of the fourth pleonal segment, and partially or completely covers the plastron.
I think I know what a plastron is. Like, I think I've heard that name before.
It just sounds like I'm taking the piss.
I had to sort of break down a lot of words. Like when I said cephalothorax before, I was like, I could say cephalothorax, but I don't even know what cephalothorax means.
I don't want to be embarrassed when someone says, "What's a cephalothorax?" And you're yeah, it just means you got a stubby head. Certified chode.
Yeah. Ooh, no neck. Get rid of that thing.
Yeah.
Who needs it?
Just turn into a cloud.
Yeah. So thank you for coming to my crab talk.
Thank you. I know more about crabs now. Thank you.
I know. I really enjoyed that. Thank you, Oscar.
I don't know more about crabs, but I know more about hermit crabs.
I really, really like hermit crabs. They're little babies, and I love them.
Yeah. That little hairy stone crab.
I'm just gonna start crying and get all emotional.
I saw a little Google Images picture where someone was poking it, and he was grabbing the nail like, "Hey, don't poke me." Bless.
The Wikipedia did the hairy stone crab dirty because they've only got like this black and white sort of hand drawn that doesn't do it any justice.
Yeah.
So I Googled to see if there were pictures, and I was not disappointed.
Yes. I would recommend anyone listening to Google hairy stone crab.
Absolutely.
What a great little fella.
So,
okay.
Amber.
I guess it's me, isn't it? Well, it's probably best that I go last, because I'm going to hopefully wind us down a little. So, humans, we're such intrepid explorers, wouldn't you agree? I mean, we've shown we can reach the most unlikely places of creation, the most unusual dark corners. I'm sure that goes without saying, but what would you say is the most tantalizing unexplored frontier? Perhaps deep space? The ocean floor, even? Cyberspace? What about the inside of a dream?
Excuse me?
Dreams. That's right, we're talking dreams. Dreams, what a strange phenomenon. You lie down to rest. You get yourself cozy and you lay still. With your eyes closed, all you have is the stillness and darkness. And your thoughts. In the dark blankness, your thoughts take on more form, more real estate in your experience. Somewhere along the way, something changed, and you're now no longer awake. You're asleep and dreaming. What were once merely thoughts become simulations, facsimile productions of scenes, either from reality or a deep and mysterious fold of your expansive imagination. Your eyes, forgotten and left behind, are replaced in this place by the oft-overlooked looking orb of your mind's eye. Given the centre stage of your awareness, it dances a bizarre pulp fiction of riddle-like logic and baffling action. And so ubiquitous, this eccentricity of your brain's electricity. Phrases are coined. Dream logic, for one. A simple phrase that permits the most disjointed drama, freedom from rational criteria. Yet, despite the obvious incongruencies, at the time, it all seemed normal to you. Dreams have an uncanny ability to suspend your disbelief entirely. At this point, you'll believe most anything that occurs to you. And should you have a moment of realization, a brief window of clarity, you may identify that it is indeed a dream you're inside of instead of reality. This can lead to a few outcomes: semi-lucidity, full lucidity, or awakening. Take semi-lucidity. Listeners might recall occasions where they suddenly become aware that they were in fact inside an entirely different reality. From personal experience, I've found, in these moments, I will turn to one of the figments of my imagination and exclaim with amazement, "This is a dream," or "I'm dreaming." Yet I still turned to the facsimile Oscar, or the figment of D, to share my realization, unable to become lucid enough to determine that everyone around me, the whole universe even, is of my creation. In these cases, I've found that I'm still bound by the rules of normal reality. I can't fly, I can't see through walls, for example, and on most occasions I eventually lose this lucidity and become again duped by this all-encompassing dream world. Lucid dreaming I will have to speak about without the benefit of personal experience, since I have never had such a game-breaking glitch occur while inside my own personal simulation. If you become entirely lucid and begin lucid dreaming, you might be able to simply change the world around you with a single thought, or fly high into the sky and soar like a bird. As waking logic might conclude, this is all in your head, so you make the rules. But for anyone who has seen The Matrix, it's not so simple to become the one. A lot of people who experience full lucidity might find that it almost shocks them awake when they have that realization. As soon as they realize the people, the room, the world is all just a figment of their imagination, they startle awake and the chance to fly is lost.
I have had that happen on multiple occasions where I have been quite deep in a dream, and then I have something has happened, and I can't tell you what kind of thing, because obviously I don't remember because it's a fucking dream, but something has happened, and I've gone, oh wait, this is a dream, and then immediately ripped through all the layers of dream logic and into consciousness. I'm like, oh. Yeah,
it's a bit of a weird one. Why having that realization would that just tear you out of the illusion? I suppose it's if you're asleep and your alarm's going off, and there comes a point where you go, oh, I have to wake up. So it's kind of like if you're dreaming and then you go, oh my god, this isn't real, and your brain just goes, oh fuck, we need to get out of here. Let's pull you out. But yeah, I often find that it's I try and fly and I can't quite fly because I know flying's impossible. So I just kind of swoop and glide near the floor. There's been quite a lot of dreams recently where I kind of bounce along as if I'm, like a balloon. But a balloon filled with air where they can kind of just bounce on the floor, but they don't float around like helium balloons. So I just kind of I'll throw myself down some stairs and just swoop at the end and land softly. And I'll be like, look, did anyone see me do that? Very strange. I mean, I guess what I wanted to get across on the whole is the strangeness of dreams. We all take them for granted, since they can be so frequent depending on the individual and so widespread. We just take them for granted. Dreams are experienced by people from every corner of the globe. Even animals can dream. Owners of dogs and cats might have seen them acting out scenarios with little leg movements, face twitches, or even noises like little barks or something like that. And they often seem confused if you wake them from this dream, just as people can be. What a strange phenomenon indeed. But back to the original point. How could we explore dreams? It's not like deep space. We have telescopes and spacecraft to look and voyage out into the great expanse. We have a way to gather information from beyond. And the sea floor. We have radar or submersibles. Again, a way to actually probe the deep. Even cyberspace, I suppose, especially cyberspace, it's all code. Even AIs have a code we can read, some way we can decipher the secrets of the machine. But dreams? An hallucinatory simulation of scenarios personal to you and only for you to experience. Hell, you forget most all of it as soon as you wake. Your hippocampus isn't really recording new memories while you're dreaming. It just consolidates existing memories for long-term storage. Hence the whole, if you sleep on a decision, you can usually make better decisions because Your hippocampus, while you're asleep, goes, right, let's order through all that stuff we saw yesterday. And instead of doing its job of making short-term memory into long-term memory on your experiences right now, it just works on what you've already experienced while you were awake. So it just stops recording. Like how strange it is that your brain makes you dream, but elects to store it only in your short-term memory when you wake up. So it quickly evaporates if you don't write it down as soon as you arise. So if the section of the brain responsible for turning those dream experiences into recorded data for study is off right when you need it most, as you wake up, then how can we even properly study the dream world? Imagine the crazy information we could extract. I mean, what the hell are dreams even playing at anyway? Oh hey, let me go lie down in the dark for a few hours so I can hallucinate my workplace, but it's really busy, and I need the toilet, and people keep going where they're not supposed to, and there's a leak in the roof, and there's a dog loose, and the phone's ringing off the hook, and it's actually not my workplace, it's a fire extinguisher factory, and I have to do parkour to fill the canisters, but I'm being hunted by a robot, which makes it really difficult because I'm on a beach with my friends enjoying a nice margarita, but we're stranded with no chance of rescue, and the trees are evil aliens trying to poison us, and oh my god, the robot's back, and all of this for seemingly no reason at all. So, the dreamscapes that we all know and love, but apparently can't remember, are right here between our ears every night. Or day. Someone needs to work nights, after all.
Hello!
But our best minds can't penetrate the cursed veil of unknowing caused by our own minds. Or can we? Cue Vsauce music. Well, a team have managed to overcome the mind's own blocks by circumventing them entirely, by communicating with dreamers directly while they're dreaming. In what I think is an amazing exhibit of scientific pioneering, these scientists gathered 36 people, some infrequent lucid dreamers, some experienced lucid dreamers, and one person with narcolepsy who is a frequent lucid dreamer. Also, nuts, imagine if you had narcolepsy. Like, you wouldn't even know whether you're awake half the time, just because you fall asleep at random intervals. That would be nutty. Big respect for anyone who's got narcolepsy out there. Must be tough. The scientists would ask these dreamers simple questions, like 8 minus 6, and other simple maths problems, to which the dreamer would perform pre-agreed upon eye movements to answer. Apparently, when asked after waking up, dreamers said that the scientists asking the questions would sound like a voiceover coming from somewhere beyond the dream. How weird is that? So they would just talk, they would just speak to the person while they're lying in front of them, and they were like, yeah, sounded like you were a voiceover. So strange. Amazing. Amazing as establishing direct two-way communication with lucid dreamers sounds, it wasn't all perfect. Of the 36 participants, only 18% established this clear and accurate two-way communication with the researchers. 17% gave completely indecipherable answers. 3% gave incorrect answers, and roughly 60% didn't respond at all. It's also odd to note, but maybe not so much for anyone who has woken up from a dream, that the details of some dreamers' interactions with the researchers were fragmented, vague, or muddled when they awoke. Some dreamers remembered different questions than the ones they were asked, and even different answers than the ones they gave, which I suppose highlights the problems with studying dreams that we've discussed before. If you can't accurately remember the dream, how can we study what goes on within? But in any case, the team is looking to build on this experiment to explore what other opportunities that two-way interactive lucid dreaming could provide us. In the meantime, we'll have to make do with our own hallucinatory worlds, hopefully at least once every day, and for about 7 hours.
That's an ambitious amount of sleep.
Come on, we gotta try for something. They call it beauty sleep. I slept for 21 hours recently and I look shit.
I call it bitch sleep.
Yeah, I do feel, I would go with that more. But yeah, there you go.
Slipping into beast mode.
But yeah, there you go. I find it weird that everyone overlooks dreams so much. What a bizarre
Dreams,
phenomenon.
like,
Yeah.
I feel like we might have talked about it before at some point. Just like dreams are just fucking wild. Like, let's be honest. There's no real applying any logic to that shit. The brain's just random, and you just no, there is obviously logic behind it, but you go to bed and you basically hallucinate.
Yeah.
But not in a conscious way. You just hallucinate in a subconscious way that you can be aware of. But the minute you wake up, you're probably going to forget entirely about it, and you're still somehow going to feel rested. Yeah. I can think of dreams I've had where I've woke up feeling like I've not slept.
Yeah. I did see one thing that was saying that some dreams are more like delirium, where there's crazy shit going on, and then some dreams are more like your mind wandering. So it's almost like, like some dreams are like actual real sensory input, and some dreams are more like your mind just wandering from scenario to scenario, which is often why dreams might reflect the mental state that you're in currently. So if you're anxious about work, you might have a dream about things going haywire at work and you're having a hard time dealing with it.
Anxiety dreams are the worst.
I was having loads of dreams recently where I'm going into a toilet and then people keep trying to get in the toilet, or there's a big window with people walking past or something. Yeah, it's not great.
What always throws me is just the perception of time in dreams, because you can wake up after like 8 hours and you're like, I can remember a dream but only bits of it, and it can be that you can have a short nap and the dreams you've have seem to have been longer than the nap, or you can have a full 8 hours sleep and it's like, I only had like a little bit of a dream.
It is bizarre.
It is. All right. I'm going to shift us on to our last section.
Okay.
So, as always, we tend to talk about something we've been enjoying between recordings, and because I'm already talking, I'm going to be the first one to do it. Yeah, makes sense. So, I have written down some words on this document, and I'm thinking that actually I wrote the script probably a week ago, and I probably would change this, so come on brain, spit out some useful information.
Stick to the script.
There we go. So, I recently had COVID. I didn't die. But I was unfortunately pretty much unable to do anything for pretty much the entire self-isolation, which led to me rewatching a lot of TV, and one show has just really stuck with me and has probably just become my new favourite show for a myriad of reasons, but it's Tuca and Bertie, which is, I think it's created by Lisa Hannah-Walt, but I'll have to check that in a minute. It's really good animation, it's very sort of surreal, it's very similar style to BoJack Horseman, so every character is an anthropomorphic animal. There's lots of sort of high concept comedy, but with very sort of real down to earth with very real issues being covered. It's a very good show that centers around a duo who are friends, who are in their 30s, attempting to, I guess, navigate life. One who is recovering alcoholic, and the other who has tremendous anxiety, and they're just trying to figure out how to live life. But it depicts some very healthy relationships, and it depicts unhealthy relationships, and it depicts how to deal with mental health. For me, it's become sort of my new comfort show, just in the sense that there's so much in there that I can look at and relate to, and I think it covers it in such a rich narrative way that it always leaves me wanting more. And it's very weird to talk about a TV show in this segment, because I don't think I've ever done that before. But yeah, real good show, really interesting visuals. It's just been confirmed for season 3, or it probably was confirmed a while ago and I didn't notice until recently. It actually got cancelled after season 1 on Netflix, but then thankfully Adult Swim took it over. I think it was Adult Swim. And have continued producing it, and it's just phenomenal. Like there's an episode that I was talking to you to earlier that literally just reduced me to tears and really made me think about life and things. And yeah, I think it's a really good deep show that I think really anyone can enjoy but I will also preface it with it does cover some pretty heavy stuff in there, but I think it's covered in a respectful and what I consider to be quite a healthy way. I'm just like skimming through the entire show now, just on a quick loop to think, is there anything in there that I didn't agree with? And I'm like, no, I think it was pretty damn solid. So I would recommend anyone check that out if they want to have a real sort of heartwarming, interesting, feelsy sort of sitcom.
All right.
This is the bit where you two start talking.
Okay.
Oh, do you want to go first, Amber?
Okay. What I have been enjoying myself is, I don't know whether I said this last time, but I'll go ahead with it anyway. Mass Effect Legendary Edition.
Woo!
Now, I'm a big Mass Effect fan. I joined in on Mass Effect 2, but I always thought 1 looked interesting. Played 2, loved it, went back and played 1. A little bit more of a slog, but absolutely rich lore and all that sort of stuff. And and then 3 as well. So the Legendary Edition comes with all 3 games, all DLCs and all that sort of stuff. And then they HD remastered Mass Effect 1 as well.
And it comes with a bunch of quality of life improvements.
Yeah, so the combat's all been tuned up and all that sort of stuff. And it's basically the versions of those games if you want to play them ever. And, we just spent about 30 minutes earlier today just discussing the ramifications of different choices that you make during the game. And I think as far as RPGs go, it's really a standout series. And
it was absolutely not 30 minutes. It was so much longer than 30 minutes, but sure, we'll say 30 minutes.
Okay, yeah, maybe it was 30 plus minutes that we were discussing it. But yeah, it's always been a favourite of mine for many years. And yeah, since they just brought out the new Legendary Edition, I would recommend that to anyone who's looking to pick up any RPG game, because it's the price of 1 game and you get 3 games. And I've got to say, it's been worth it. It was a gift from D. Thank you so much, D.
It is fine. The entire reason you got it gifted was because I am also a big Mass Effect fan and was very excited and was playing through it and was like, I just need another human being to play this so I can talk about it.
Well, you got it.
Thank you.
Also slingshotted me onto playing Mass Effect Andromeda, which I was hesitant to say is what I like this week because I've not finished it yet, but I'll get back to you.
Oh, lovely. Is that me?
It's your turn.
It is you.
Okay. So, with what I've been enjoying over the last week or two, I'll just read you this quickly. This is the intro to the show I've been watching, and you'll understand what it is very shortly. If you're a human being, take a break from the race. Take a load off your feet, wipe the load off your face. You've got a lot to do, and we'll do it for you. Everybody take your place. It's Muppets tonight. It's Muppets tonight, everyone.
Right, that was... Sorry, just when you said wipe a load off your face...
Yeah, I know. I read that, and I was like, okay, but surely there's another context here.
No.
But, yeah, It's the Muppets tonight. It's a live action sort of mock of, guest star television.
Like Saturday Night Live.
Like Saturday Night Live, except everyone's a Muppet except for the one guest star on the show. And
like
you know what? It's fantastic. I watched the whole thing. I was like, you know what? None of this has aged badly. I really enjoyed it. Because all the jokes are about them being Muppets. It's fantastic. It's got Kermit singing the Same As It Ever Was by Talking Heads in it.
Yeah.
It's got some fantastic guest stars, including John Goodman, Sandra Bullock, Whoopi Goldberg, the artist formerly known as Prince.
Oh.
Pierce Brosnan, who did one of my favourite sketches of the entire series, because as some of you may know, Pierce Brosnan was a James Bond at some point.
James Nund.
But the sketch was the Muppets being like, right, we'll put you in a casino. You'll just swerve your way through. You'll maybe gamble a little bit, and then there'll be a big fight scene at the end. But the joke was that Pierce Brosnan was very clumsy himself and was just playing the character James Bond. So it's like he walks into this place, he like grabs a drink and like lifts it up to drink in his face, but it's attached to the tray, so he pours loads of drinks all over himself. He then like leans on a table casually, which then flips over and sends Muppets flying. It was just really enjoyable. I watched like one episode whenever I had a break at work, just to like break it up, and it's really enjoyable. And I think, I'm not sure if I've said this to you two before, but I think as a society as a whole, we need more Muppets content.
Yeah,
I would stand that.
Yeah, the entirety of Lord of the Rings, where everyone's a Muppet bar one character. I haven't decided who that character is yet. Maybe Aragorn, but everyone else is a Muppet. Has to be. Maybe Gandalf.
Yeah, Gandalf would be a good pick.
Yeah, I mean, they did it with Muppets Treasure Island and Muppets Christmas Carol. I think we need to get back to our roots and just rediscover some old, classics, but through a new Muppetier set of eyes.
I agree.
Yeah.
And on that note, I think that's us. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Any topic suggestions or feedback, drop us a comment or email us on phenomenautspodcast@gmail.com. We can even give you a shout out if you'd like. We're not beyond that. Peace out, folks, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.